This week on Green Pill Weekly, we get a sneak peek at the all-new 30-foot all-metal hoop house from Bootstrap Farmer. We release the Texas-made heavy-duty hoop benders, and Katie and Andy talk about how they got started in figs and things to think about when selling fruit trees.
Bootstrap Farmer is at 007 Farms, and we're going to talk about the hoop house that we put out their farm. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know where we're at?
Yeah, hey there, I'm Justin Bond with 007 Farms, and yeah, so the hoop house, it's something that I was really spending a lot of time researching and just kind of looking over different companies, different design structures, features, that sort of thing. And as I was starting to get into the process, I was really kind of what I was going to do about wood. I didn't really want to use any kind of treated wood for maybe any kind of chemical runoff or anything like that. Yeah. And so as I was looking through different companies, I came across Bootstrap, and they're all metal kit. And I just really loved the design features. I loved that it was wood free.
Right. So
I loved that everything come included. It was all really fairly simple, a really efficient kit. And
all delivered at one time on a pallet.
All delivered at one time on a pallet. Unloaded it with my tractor just right off the truck, so that was really super simple.
Okay.
And yeah.
What are some of the features that you thought were interesting when you finally saw it in person?
Well, whenever I've seen it in person, so this is my first one, kind of new to this sort of thing. I'd only seen it in pictures and online, watching videos and whatnot. And so I would say, just for me personally, the thing that I was really kind of most impressed by is the hat channels, kind of in place for the floorboard and the hip board. Yeah, the hat channel, because
in place of the wood. That's what we use.
Yeah, exactly. In place of the wood, it was easy to work with, lightweight yet really super strong. And just the way it fit together, with it being an all metal product, that's probably the thing that impressed me the most.
It's surprising that you can replace the wood with such a light piece of metal.
Right.
So it's really useful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely is.
Good. So we just went through the NRCS post-build inspection with the local NRCS agent that came out on site. How'd that go for you today?
Extremely easy. The NRCS inspectors came out, they looked over the structure, they measured the structure, the interior square footage, and overall they were really impressed with the structure, with the overall build, the materials, the bracing that was included.
They didn't have a lot. They weren't picky. I mean, they didn't find anything that.
No.
They kind of came, they talked to you, they inspected.
Yes, and that was something I was kind of wondering about it, and just kind of like, I wonder what's going to happen, what are they going to say, what are they really going to be looking into. And honestly, the build was simple, the inspection was simpler.
Yeah, it was. They were pretty quick.
Yes.
Quick. So the NRCS grant, really smooth.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're going to grow inside of this hoop house.
Sure. Well, so we're in mid-March right now, so honestly, I really don't plan to be like kind of fully up and running. I got a lot of infrastructure to do currently. Currently putting in, digging for irrigation. I've got to run electricity, put some ventilation, trellising in here. But I'm hoping I've got a lot of tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, cucumbers, those sort of things.
Things
started.
You need a tall greenhouse for.
Exactly. Right. Things I can run
you
up the trellis.
Need a tall hoop house.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, those all should be ready to go. My goal is to have it kind of all planted out by mid-April, 1st of May. And so that's what I'm shooting for, if I can get it kind of all those other, projects lined up.
Right. And you got a plan. And that's the important thing, is you got a plan. You're not
I've got a plan. I'm going to try to work
shooting from the hip. Right.
And I've got a contingent plan based on that plan.
Right.
So, yeah.
And do you have help doing this? Is your family helping you? You have a business?
Yeah. So my wife Elizabeth is a big help. She has a full-time job, but she's usually out here for an hour or two a day. I've got some young teenage children that I can, they help out here for an
lean
hour or
on
two a
them.
day.
Okay,
yeah,
good,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
okay.
Lean on them for their muscle
That's right.
and their young energy.
Their energy.
And then so it's a kind of a big family project, a family farm. So
Nice.
occasionally my dad will be out here. My grandpa, who's 86, about to be 87 in a couple months, he
nice.
likes getting out here and doing things. So
That's
yeah,
nice.
it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun family time, although it's not always fun for the kids.
Of course not. It's chores.
Yes.
But you've got a nice setup. You've got your hoop house going. You've got your infrastructure. You talked about doing infrastructure. So it's important for people to understand there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just about putting up a hoop house. You've got irrigation being run. I mean, it's a lot of work. So
yeah. There's a lot of steps. I mean, even going to the just the initial soil work and groundwork,
right.
As far as
the leveling.
Yeah, leveling everything out.
moving.
Lining out all the ground posts and that sort of thing. There's a lot that goes into it, really from the ground up.
Right.
So.
It's good to have a team, family members, and help. A really good friend. It's a big project.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Andy.
We have a lot of people ask us why we started growing figs. So we wanted to kind of get into that with you and talk about our future plans with the operation. So I guess, why the figs?
Well, I initially got a fig tree as a gift, an Osborne Prolific. It's not really a spectacular tree in our location. Maybe it's better somewhere else. But it was kind of just you're getting a greenhouse gift. And it was never going to be anything productive in my mind. And the first time I pruned it, I was very pleased to see that the cuttings rooted quite easily. And I had more fig trees, at which point I started to kind of reach out and find mail order cuttings, and things really snowballed from there.
So what was your first favorite variety that you started thinking, I really want more?
My first favorite variety would have been the Chicago Hardy. You get fruit when they're quite small. The fruit isn't very big, but it has a deep red color to the pulp. And the skin is a really nice purple. So it's a good developed, very sweet fig. It's almost like a jam. And those are ones that in our 90-day frost-free, we will definitely get those here. And they can freeze back to the ground and come back from their roots. So just with a nice mulch layer, you're going to get at least a couple of figs out of Chicago Hardy. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Growing up somewhere where it was so cold that I had never even thought of figs really, it's very interesting to find out how hardy they actually are. And that really piques my interest in our location.
Well, we kind of talk about too how we want, when people come here, the stuff that they get from us, I want them to be like, holy crap, that's so good. And I want them to look forward to it every single year. And once we started trying all these different figs and all of these different variations, some were like honey, some were like jam. It was just like, we need to do this. Yeah.
Well, and fruit are kind of forgotten up in the northern hemisphere here. The further north you get, blueberries, but that's a tough one. Our soil's not very acidic. There's a few other berries, choke cherries, things of that nature, bush cherries. American plums, which if you find a good one, gosh, they're good. They're real good. And But with a really short growing period like we have, fruit is kind of forgotten. Root vegetables, you know, a lot of those things are really difficult. And simply because that's my mind immediately went to, I can't grow figs. I can't grow figs here.
It was also pretty appealing because we can have them dormant and save money during the winter months where like propane usage in our greenhouse would normally be pretty high if we're trying to grow tomatoes. And on top of that, we just didn't get to have a life in the winter ever.
Yeah.
And then you're busy all summer long. And this way we could have it dormant, we could save money. And then every year, if we don't sell a tree, it's worth more the next year. So it kind of changed how we did a lot of things.
Trees are pretty low risk as far as if you don't sell the inventory, there's a lot of ways to hold it over. Until, you know, sometimes someone might see that tree 2-3 seasons in a row and have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for something that's developed to a certain extent. Whereas I like to get small stuff. I like to be able to pack a bunch of little bushes and trees in the pickup and bring them home. And it might take a little while, but they grow awfully darn quick. When they're smaller, the shock isn't so hard.
I agree.
Yeah.
So this year would be the first year that we're actually going to try taking the figs outside. Andy's been growing his collection big enough that it's not as big of a risk. We're not starting with this small pool. We've got a bunch of bigger plants.
Over 100 to put outside, and then we have a couple hundred that'll be staying inside. So,
yep.
Well, and then I have enough inventory here. You might be able to see behind us that I'm going to have 500-600 fig trees for sale this year. So I can get a little bit better idea of what the demand is in my area. We started with maybe 40 or 50 last year, and they were gone so quick. I don't really have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot more than 40 is where I could be.
Yeah. Well, I started up a web store, and then I was advertising online through social media that we had these trees, and then I would just have them buy them online on our store. Yep. And we had a bunch of information about care and transplanting. And then I would just deliver in town, and every single time I would sell a fig tree, somebody else would say, bring 2, because my friend just heard about you guys. So it was pretty apparent that people now, with everybody staying in a lot more, they're able to take care of plants. So I really think that this is a great leap for us.
Well, that's another huge draw to the figs is you can, even here where it's so cold, we can put them inside in the winter. We have a couple in the kitchen that are green all year round. I know my family in South Dakota has some that, during those dark days, they lose their leaves where those are located, but they're already gaining them back here beginning of March. And if you don't have space in your house or a window or something of that nature, you can put them in the garage or a garden shed. The main thing's keeping them out of that wind will desiccate them. So if you have them out in that sun and that wind, if you just have them out of the wind, generally speaking, your shed will probably stay, above zero in most scenarios. Now, sometimes we run into, you want to be in an attached garage, it's 40, 50 below zero. There's not a whole lot of hope there. But you have options with a fig tree.
Yep. And now this year we'll be putting up a Bootstrap Farmer hoop house where we'll be able to have retail sale of several varieties. How many varieties are we doing this year?
Oh gosh, I think I've got 6 or 7. We started with about 20, and in our location, some of them, wanted to be in the sun year round. Some of them were not particularly productive, or the fruit wasn't very palatable.
Or some of them, they've got this weird smell. Like some varieties were worse, like this urine smell. You got to be careful on the varieties. I think we got rid of most of those. So the last couple of years, Andy's just kind of, who's got the best fruit, who does well, who.
Well, and then we're looking into things like double cropping. Some of them have a breba crop, so we'll get some early. Some of them I don't prune because I know we will get fruit in May. And then if I prune after that, we still may get some July, August. Whereas some of them, I'm not going to get anything until July, so it's best to just prune them now and get a nice big healthy crop on that new growth, because figs do fruit on new wood.
That's awesome. So I guess, this year we are selling a higher amount of the actual fig trees. And then on top of that, this will be a year, hopefully, for fruit for us.
Yep.
We kind of waited for the figs to get to a certain age to kind of develop enough for good fruit.
Yeah. And then we also, our strawberries are out there as well. So that kind of, they pair nicely.
Yeah,
with one
definitely.
another.
Yeah. So what would you recommend for somebody wanting to start their own collection or?
I would definitely go with a reputable cow. I would go with a reputable fig grower. I'd go with someone that, in a lot of the country, there's probably someone local to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're zone 5 and warmer, I would almost guarantee there's someone around that is already fiddling with figs. Us, zone 4, surrounded by zone 3, there's not a whole lot of people playing with them in our area. So I had to kind of do my research online. If you're lucky enough to have a fig expert somewhere in your area, go pick their brain. Pick a day you have some time. I know personally I could talk about figs for hours on end. But I think the main thing with the figs is if you're not in a location where you do have a fig expert, find a Facebook page. Google works too. There's a few really good forums online as well. And I think the main thing is before you jump in and just buy the first one you see at the big box nursery, do some research, because a lot of times if you go to a big box store to buy your fig trees, and it's fault of no one really, what happens with these huge operations, and it happened to me my first year, is you start planting these fig and you figure, well, I'll label this row or I'll label, and the problem when you start thinning and going through, not all your propagation is going to work out. Figs have a pretty high rate of success, but as you start thinning things and shuffling them and moving them around, and someone who doesn't know comes through and maybe waters and shuffles to make their way through with the hose, now we don't know, and there really is no way on a fig to know with any certainty without having a leaf and the fruit there to really compare. The bark's similar. The trees can grow very differently or similarly depending upon, the environmental conditions. So make sure you get it from someone reputable. I have a few fig trees in here that are not labeled, and it just kills me because I cannot sell cuttings off of those trees. As a nursery, you can't do that. That's an ethics thing as well as, a regulation thing. But at the same time, it's hard to put the resources in and have these delicious figs, and I have no idea. There's no way for me to tell in my location so far away from other fig trees what I even have here. Now, the ones that are labeled and that we are very diligent about. The second a tree is cut, a label goes into that container, and whenever the fig tree is transplanted or anything, one at a time, and nothing happens until that label goes into that new container. So that's honestly my biggest advice, because fig trees are incredibly hardy. You can get them off, once they're rooted, you can get them awfully darn dry, you can get them awfully darn cold. You can give them quite a bit of water before it's an issue. That's probably, they're fussiest about too much water, which, that's most of our potted plants, really. I don't like that.
So I don't know if we're doing it right, or it seems to be working pretty well for us so far. It's been kind of an interesting new venture for us, but
it's been about 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. So
they've been around. They grow on you.
They really do. Yeah, I love figs. I love figs.